Hello, Adam. Welcome to the writing tournament. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no, great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you. So Adam is a Canadian author. He's a first round judge for the writing tournament as well. So he may be judging your work if you're watching. So maybe we should get straight into it, find out a little bit about Adam and find out about his writing tips, which I know he'll have plenty of. Um,
Mm.
so, Adam, can you tell us, first of all, just a little bit about how long you've been writing for and what kind of started you off on the path?
Mm. I mean, I think like most of us, I've been writing since I was, 5 years old, 4 years old, whatever it might be. And I still have a lot of old stories. It's really fun sometimes to go through them and see what I thought was funny when I was six. Uh, but it wasn't until 2018 when I started taking things seriously. And at that point, I was working with a small company, and we were having a lot of discussions about entrepreneurship and following your dreams. And I realized that uh, my dream was to write. My dream was to be a published author, to get my books out to the world. So I left the small company. I took a job as a part-time teacher, and I've basically been on a crash course for learning craft ever since. So much to learn. Biggest lesson: never give up. Second biggest lesson: always be willing to learn and change. But it's been a lot of fun too, and I've really enjoyed myself.
So in terms of the learning, how did you approach that for the past sort of 2, 3 years?
Honestly, when I first started, I didn't realize that I would have to learn. It was kind of like, oh, I'll sit down, I'll write a book. And I did, and it was great. It was a 160,000 word high fantasy epic, and it's a tangled, horrible mess. And I will go back to it one day. But after I wrote that book and I started shopping it around, I started joining writing groups and talking about craft with people, and I realized that I didn't know what I was doing. And so I, joined writing groups. I signed up or joined online groups like the Society for Children's Books, Scooby. I read read constantly, found books on crafts. I reached out to professional editors and had them work with my stuff to see what I was missing, just trying to do whatever I could to learn craft, and then more importantly to apply it to my own work, because it's no good if you just you take the stuff and you learn, fine, but if you don't actually try to apply it consciously to your own work, you're never going to get better. And that was with Ribbon Road, the book I'm working on now, which we'll talk about in a bit. One of the big things I did was when I started writing it, I took all the lessons I learned and said, all right, I'm going to work on this today and see how I can make this go. And then all of these things just became unconscious habits the more you write with it in mind.
Wow, yeah, that's a real dedication, and it's quite inspiring as well. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
If you're gonna follow your dreams, then do it big.
Yeah.
um, so being the professional that I am, I've written the questions on the screen next to me, so I'm looking across to the screen.
That works. I've got them too. Don't worry.
um, so which is the first story? So you say you've been writing, since you're very young. Which is the first story that you fell in love with reading, and why? Why do you think that was?
Yeah, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And I was 12 years old at the time, and I never read anything like it before. It's like, what is this? It's so amazing. It's so funny. It's making me laugh out loud constantly, continuously. I think I read the thing 5 times by the time I was 13. Like, it just absolutely amazing. And at the time, I was like, I want to write like that. I want to write like this. And I spent years trying to do it, realizing that I can't write like that. That's not me. But no, I can still read that book and laugh out loud.
Mm,
It's amazing, and I think that's part of the thing that with your writing that you're looking for. You want to stand out a little bit. You want to be unique. You want somebody when they
mm,
read you to go, oh, this is really cool. I've never read anything like this. That's
yeah,
what's going to get you your first agent.
yeah, yeah. So does that follow that Douglas Adams is your favorite author, or not?
He was for a long time, and I enjoyed all the Hitchhiker's Guide series, and I enjoyed the Dirk Gently series as well. But no, Terry Pratchett is now my favorite author, and his Discworld series, and I have them all. all of them. They take up a single shelf on my bookshelf, but I've got all the Discworld books. And it's just, Douglas Adams' hilarity was sort of a little more slapstick, a little more laugh out loud. Terry Pratchett's is a little more subtle. Great satire, great parody, great world building, really great characters. And just to follow the characters through all the books through the Discworld series, it's a lot of fun. My wife loves them too, actually. And hopefully when our kids are old enough, we'll read them to them too.
So is that, do you recommend starting from the beginning? I've read one Terry Pratchett book 20 years ago, because my flatmate was a big fan. And
Terry Pratchett started writing the Discworld series in the late 70s or the early 80s, so some of them are a little bit dated, some of the original ones, and particularly the writing style, some of the parodies that he's making in terms of the jokes and things like that. So no, there's no reason to start at the beginning for a lot of them. There's enough of an explanation through them that you can kind of pick up anywhere along the series. And there's also books for younger writers. It follows a witch named Tiffany, and those don't start till book number 25, I think. So if you want to start reading that series, there's 5 of them. You can pick up with that one a little later too.
Maybe I should read it back to front.
That would be interesting.
So Terry Pratchett and Douglas Adams has fallen down to number 2, maybe. So if you could tell us a bit about this book that you were mentioning, Ribbon Road. Tell us a little bit about that and who you think would love reading it.
Definitely. So this is always the hardest question, right? That's why we stuck in the middle of the interview, because it's take your 68,000 words that you've worked on painstakingly for the last 2 years and cram them their essence into a paragraph. I'm still working on it. And I'm working on pitching. I'm working on the blurb right now. So let me start off first. Ribbon Road is a upper middle grade fantasy, and it follows the story of Barbara, who gets tossed through a wormhole into another world, and basically has a bag of baby carrots and her hair ribbons to defend herself. And as she travels and throwing around world hops, she realizes that she actually has her own kind of magic. But the trouble is that it only works when she has to combine it with other people's magic. And so she's stuck on this world trying to find her mother. If she tries to search for her mother, she's going to have to let the worlds die that she's found. But on the other hand, she's realized that this may be the first place that she actually belongs. Of course, if she stays, she gives up any chance of finding out who she is and where her mother is. So that's Ribbon Road. Still working on the blurb. I throwing a whole bunch of ideas out. Spent a lot of time reading query letters, but it really would appeal. Like it's got the same sort of tone of Keeper in the Lost Cities, or His Dark Materials, that kind of idea. Or actually, a more recent book called The Secret of Zune, which I think anybody who enjoyed those books would enjoy this one. Or really anybody who enjoys a quirky story that kind of straddles the gray area between science fiction and fantasy.
Well, I was going to say it sounds great, but I've read an early version of it, as you know, and I loved it. And the main character, Barbara, is a really great character. So yes,
thank you.
Let us spread the word when it comes out, and you managed to get the blurb right.
Awesome. Hopefully soon. I want to pitch this thing by the end of the month, so I've been spending a lot of time trying to get it together. Which what you got here was kind of my jumbled bunch of thoughts about what's going to go in the blurb, but probably not in
that order. Well, we can look forward to reading the blurb as soon as that comes in. So you've got from reading it, I presume you've got a whole series planned out for that. Is that the plan?
That is the intention, definitely. I have a general story arc in terms of Barbara trying to find her mother and what's going to happen. I honestly, I don't know how many books, because they are a little bit more episodic. If you think of Stargate, where they're sort of world hopping and every episode is a different world, we could probably take the story arc and expand it out to as many books as an agent or a publisher thought they could sell, or compress it into as many books as they felt might work. So we could probably make it work as a trilogy, or maybe have it as an ebook series. And it would depend on how much success I think the first book has, but yeah, definitely series material for sure. The first book can stand alone, but there's a few strings untied at the end that would lead you into the next series.
Well, in 20 years, maybe we'll be saying that you can start at book 19 if you like, because he started back in the 20s.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. I'd like to write a few other things too. So hopefully, but you never know, right? So
we said Barbara is the hero of the story. What made you choose a girl rather than a a boy, because naturally people, I think, tend to veer towards
Mm.
picking heroes of the same gender.
Yeah, they do. Write what you know is often the advice given. And I've had a few people, a few early beta readers who said maybe you should consider writing from the perspective of a boy, and not because they didn't tell me my voice was wrong. They didn't tell me I wasn't getting it right. They just assumed because I was male I should write from the perspective of a male. But I don't know. I have lots of different story ideas, and some of them have been started into books, and some of them I'll get working on. Some of them are perspective of boys, some of them are the perspective of girls. It's just the way the story is. I wouldn't think of writing it any other way. Ribbon Road is actually based on a dream I had, which is my dreams are often odd. I'm not usually in them. It's like I'm watching a movie, and there was this girl and her uncle, and this girl got thrown into this random world, and she met the boy named Egric, who's the other character, and she fought the weird Starface people, and that's just the way the dream was. So that's the way the book was.
So you
But
didn't wake up and it was written.
no, none of that. No,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it would be nice.
Yeah.
No. But I mean, I have 13 nieces and nephews, and of them, there are 4 nephews. So it's a lot of nieces to base the character of Barbara on, and
Yeah.
that's really where I've drawn my inspiration, because a good chunk of them have gone through their teens already. So
Well, I'm not just saying this. You've done it very well. She's a really great character. From page 1, I thought she was a great character. So
thank you very much.
sorry, it's true, and I'm English, so saying that is actually being genuine. Not just whatever that means. All right. So moving on. Okay, so 2018, you decided to change of course and to become an author. Is it different how you imagined treading that path?
So much harder. I remember I wrote my first book, that massive epic I told you about, and I remember talking to my family. I'd finished it right just before the holiday season, and talking to my family, and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna spend the next couple months publishing it or editing it and get it out to publishers. It'll be great." No, what? No, it's so much harder, and there's just so much chance involved. You hear all these stories of famous authors. Stephen King, for example, is probably the best one, who pitched his first thing, Carrie, to something like 30 or 40 different agents, and they turned him down, and then it sold millions of copies. Or we all know about Harry Potter, right? But you hear these stories, but you always think, they're not really going to apply to me. I'll be fine. No, you won't.
Yeah.
It's just there's so much to do. But it's like any entrepreneurship thing, right? If you're going to do it, then go big and do it.
Yeah.
Don't give up. Keep chasing it. Keep learning. Keep changing. Keep adjusting. Don't assume you're going to be a superstar if you don't actually put the work in. But go and get it. Keep going. Right? So yeah, it's a lot harder than I thought, but it's been fun too.
Yeah, that's the thing. The life of it and the process of it is fun, and that's what you have to enjoy and hard. Mark Hood,
Exactly.
one of the other first round judges, said the other day that writing a novel, it was fairly hard. It's fairly hard at the beginning, but as you get further into it, the mountain gets steeper. And a month ago, I wouldn't necessarily believe that, but now I'm starting to see.
It can. I find. So for me, actually, the writing is probably the easiest part of this whole process, because once it gets going, the momentum just carries me through. I'm like, I can feel the story. I know where this is going. It's not always good writing by any means, and editing is probably one of the things I'm still struggling with, to find a process that works for me in terms of going back once I get those words down, to try to line it up into something. But I've just gone through the process of searching and researching agents, and everything just seems so random. So much chance involved. But yeah, for everyone's different, right? For some people, they're better at publicizing themselves on social media than the writing they might find harder. Or some people are great at reaching out to people like agents and things like that. They might find something else hard. So don't worry about it. Just, again, if it's your dream, go out and get it.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I think just to reiterate what other people have said to people, younger writers watching this that might enter the tournament, that we all first drafts aren't particularly good, and that goes for any writer, even the biggest writers in the world. So don't be despondent if you don't love what you've written the first time, just keep with it, and writing is rewriting, as we always hear.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And be willing to kill off your darlings. Be willing to, there are no sacred cows through this one. If you end up rewriting the entire thing, it'll be better for it.
Mm. Yeah, no, that's great. So we shall move on to well, it's just a little sub question, which maybe you've answered. I don't know, but what are your writing hopes and dreams? Maybe your big dream.
Yeah, just to be a writer, to be known, to make my living from writing, to be able to do that as my full-time job, to have somebody say, 20 years on, oh yeah, you can start in part 19 of this series. Then, I want to make this my career for the rest of my life. I want to be, 70 years old and be able to look back and have a body of work that is out to the world that hopefully my children will appreciate and think I'm cool for doing, and not be like, oh, my dad's a writer, whatever. Uh, but yeah, that would definitely be my
dream. Great. So moving swiftly into question number 6. It's a long one. So you recently entered a short story competition and a poetry competition. How did you, as you were a judge, this will give you an insight from the other side, from entering, like a lot of the younger writers. What have you learned from doing that, and what sort of lessons could you pass on to younger writers?
Definitely. So just note that the poem on writing that I entered won an honorable mention, and the short story called "Will Destroy for Food" won third place. This is my first contest winner. I've entered a handful of others and have not had success there either. But I mean, the first thing you always have to consider is that you just never know. Right, you might enter 50 contests in a year, and you may win 2 of them, 3 of them. Right, keeping in mind that there are hundreds of other writers all trying to do the same thing, and the judging is so subjective. It's 1 or 2, maybe a small panel of people who are looking at your work based on their taste, based on their ideas. So you really just never know. When I entered the two pieces, the poem and the short story, I thought the poem would do well. I thought the short story, I was just entering it because I was supporting the organization. I didn't think it would do well at all. And it was the short story that wound up winning third place anyway, right? And part of the reason, again, is because of the subjective nature of the judging. She really enjoyed that particular kind of story. And it's not to say that it's bad writing. I think it's a well-written story. I'm maybe a little biased in that regard, but at the same time, like you just never know, right? So, all right, if you're entering a contest, I mean, do the work. Make sure you enter great stuff, but don't let the fear of the possibility of losing stop you from entering. Right? Now, I also don't mean that you should just send your stories out everywhere all the time, constantly. It's going to cost you a lot of money, first of all, and you'll have so little success it won't be any fun. Look for things where you think your story might actually be a little bit of a match. So, this is a Border Reavers competition we're running here. Don't send us stories about rabbits. Just probably not going to do very well. But at the same time, and never be afraid to submit. If you have a story about Border Reavers, send it our way. Never let doubt stop you from submitting.
Yeah, definitely. And if it's a border reaver that's been turned into a rabbit, then do send it our way.
That might be a lot of fun too.
See what you sort of hoping to see from contestants' stories.
Story is key, and that's true almost anywhere you go. I don't want to read an essay on Border Reavers. I can read that online if I wanted to. Don't send me a list of events of stuff that happened. Send me a story. Send me a plot. So I'm going to use a bit of a cliched bit of advice here, but we've all heard the idea of, the king died, then the queen died. That is a list of events. 2 things happened. But if you say the king died, then the queen died of grief, that's a plot, because it's a reaction, right? Plot is what happens when people react to the events around them. When you get a chain of events that is sequentially linked because of the people involved. The queen died of grief. The queen died because the king died, not just because the queen died, right? So send me a plot, send me a story. And the other thing I would say is make your characters 3-dimensional. It's too easy to paint the good guys as all good and the bad guys as all evil, but that would definitely not have been the case in the world of the Border Reavers. These were 2 very ordinary groups of people caught up in a very dangerous situation, a war between 2 kingdoms, basically, and they were just trying to make they're living, right? They were just trying to survive. So you can't paint one side as evil and one side as good. You've got to be three-dimensional about this. So I'm looking probably for a little bit more complexity in the characters of these stories. But at the same time, I'm, like you said, I'm open to be surprised, right?
Yeah.
Have fun, be original, be interesting, and don't let any doubt stop you from sending what you've got.
Yeah, definitely. And all that in 500 words. Easy.
Yeah, simple, right?
That's John John Carr. She gave us her thoughts on a possible Border Reaver story. And let's hear yours if you have one.
I don't have a specific story. I think, I don't know, it would have been so tangled, the Border Reavers, right? On the one hand, they're going off and they're raiding somebody else's kingdom or somebody else's village, and then the next hand, they're at home with their family, probably being very ordinary, just having dinner or something like that. Try to show me that that dichotomy, right? What would life like that be, where, you know, one day you're this horrible bandit, the next day you're just a normal person. I think that would be interesting to read about, to see how you deal with that kind of a struggle.
Well, that was my childhood, so I could tell you.
Nice.
No, well, I mean, that's yeah, that's great, and I think we've got a good insight into, you know, things that inspire you and what it's like to pursue being a writer, and also give some great writing tips to the you know, contestants that are going to enter. So thank you very much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure.